We got 6 guests stopping by today. 6 guests. We got 3 from Israel and 3 from home. It's Thursday. We've got the great Bill O'Reilly stopping by at 8:45 this morning. But my first guest today is a lady who took the Rosenberg family and Justin on a tour through a really, really interesting place, Gush Etzion, up in Judea and Samaria, which is a very interesting part of Israel. Well, not really Israel. She's going to tell you the whole story. And she was great. Now, we had to leave early, Justin and I, to come back here to the Cedars and go to work. But she had my wife and kids the rest of the day. Her name is Eve Harow. And we had somebody related to you on this show a couple of days ago. What is the relation?
He's my nephew.
Your nephew, okay. He was great, too. He was great. Well, you did a terrific job on Tuesday. Good to see you this morning.
Really nice to be here.
Great to have you. So, you told us on Tuesday and took us through this tour, and we saw I don't want to get too detailed when it comes to security, but we saw some really interesting stuff. But you said Judea and Samaria, right outside of really Ephrath and Bethlehem, and not far from Jerusalem, about 40 minutes away, is Israel, but it's not really Israel. So if you want to explain that to the listening audience, that would be great.
Okay, so first of all, Judea is where the term Jew comes from. It's actually a land. It's after the tribe of Judah, and the place is called Judea, and that's Yehuda, Yehudim. Okay, so Jews can source themselves to Judea. To say that Jews don't belong in Judea is like, well, I don't know. Puerto Ricans don't belong in Puerto Rico? I don't know. I think this is the indigenous thing. Israel lost these places in 1948, and they were ethnically cleansed of the Jews by the Jordanians.
Wow, they lost them in 1948, but we kicked their ass. Doesn't make a lot of sense.
So we managed to establish a Jewish state, which we hadn't had for a very, very long time. But these areas weren't included in that, and Jordan ethnically cleansed all the Jews there. So in June of 1967, in the context of the Six-Day War, when Israel liberates these areas, there are no Jews there. And so there's this idea that the Jews who live there now are somehow usurpers, settlers, whatever it is. If you believe that, you believe in ethnic cleansing. Good for you. I'm not in that camp. But what Israel didn't do in Judea and Samaria after 1967, which they did do in Jerusalem, and which they did do on the Golan Heights, which former President Trump recognized, is apply Israeli law, meaning that close to 10% of Israeli Jews live in these areas. It's not just a few people camped out on a hilltop. And we are Israeli citizens in every sense. We pay taxes, we get medical care. 40% of the soldiers that have been killed since October 7th come from Judea and Samaria. You can see the education of the loyalty to the state.
By the way, just 2 days ago, the day after your tour, I wasn't there. I was in Gush. This was in Kafar. When you guys had lunch.
We saw the film. No, where we saw the film.
Oh, yes. So the latest soldier to die was from there.
So we drove through the neighborhood, and those neighborhoods yesterday had a funeral. And the whole town is mourning exactly where we were.
Wow.
So that's a sacrifice that we're making. However, all the Israeli governments since 1967 have not taken the major step of either annexing these places or at least applying Israeli law on them. And that's why when you still hear people talking about a two-state solution, which is insane, okay? Oh, we did so well giving the Palestinian Authority and Hamas Gaza. Let's repeat it in the heart of the country right outside of Tel Aviv. So anybody who's doing that, I can't even understand.
How about the President of the United States?
Exactly.
Yeah.
But if Israel,
and you're from L.A., so,
that's the United States, kind of, yeah. Yeah, like I was eating granola before it was popular. I'm in California. No, but so that still leaves all this up in the air because it is not officially part of the state of Israel. But what we're doing there is punching way above our weight in so many ways and preventing what happened on October 7th from happening in the middle part of Israel because we're there.
And stuff does happen there all the time. I mean, Again, this barbecue that I attended last night, these soldiers have been fighting in Jenin, which is very close to where you are. I think people in America have no idea. They think there's a war in the south, there's going to be a war in the north, but there is fighting going on right there. And these are Israeli Jewish soldiers protecting that area outside of Jerusalem that, like you said, is not part of Israel, yet it really is. It's a little confusing, but the truth is, I don't think Americans know how much fighting is going on around the whole country.
All the time. Look, we believe in preventing terrorism. We don't want to have the funerals. And so when Israel Fund, who I know sponsored part of your trip and for who I have the honor of being the director of tourism and education, has spent a tremendous amount of resources in securing these places. But, you know, what happened on October 7th shocked us in terms of scale, but not in terms of what they did. There have been people in the Jewish communities of Judea and Samaria who have been slaughtered in their beds and the babies' heads cut off, and girls who have been raped and their breasts have been cut off during the rape. So this behavior, this ISIS-like behavior, that wasn't new. It was the scale and the shot and where it happened.
Right.
It was thrown everywhere.
So, we talked about this in the van. You're an extraordinary tour guide. You're great. You're great. And the informational wealth was really impressive. But I liked it when you talked about America because as much as I love it here, and I really do love it, my first trip, I'm going back to Kennedy Airport on Sunday. Yeah. And that is still my home. So when you talked about Los Angeles and how your life has changed since you moved here, I find that interesting because, again, anecdotal, it's just one person. But I've spoken to a lot of folks, including some of these soldiers last night, who moved to Israel, did their aliyah from someplace in the United States,
right,
and never want to go back. They're not like, I miss the Super Bowl, I miss whatever you may like about New York, LA, Chicago. None of them ever want to go back, no matter how many wars are going on in the country.
Hey, look, it's easier to live in the United States. And I personally did not move because I didn't like the United States. It's an extraordinary country. It's probably the greatest country that really ever was on the planet. The opportunities that it gives to people. It saddens me to my bones that it's falling apart, that it's destroying itself from the inside. And we talked about that, the ingratitude that I find among a lot of American youth as to what a great country it is and what sacrifices it took to keep it like that. Now, here in Israel, there's a tremendous amount of meaning to our lives. I have 7 kids and a whole bunch of grandchildren. What I do is for them. But there is a meaning here, not just for us, but we are full of gratitude. Some people say, like, most Israelis aren't religious. It's a term that I can't stand because you can't tell how somebody believes by what they're wearing and what their relationship is with God. We understand that we're part of something much, much bigger than our generation. We are. It's collective memory. I mean, I am doing things for the future, and I'm doing things because of the people in the past who made those sacrifices. And the food is awesome.
The food is great, yes. You talk about the future. Are you nervous? I mean, we know what happened in the South. Okay, that was horrendous. Right. But it seems like, when I'm talking to people this week, that's just the appetizer. That's the hors d'oeuvres. The North is really going to be a huge issue. You may have issues as far south as Jerusalem, Tel Aviv. Who knows? Are you nervous?
I have a problem in that I had to quell my fears already years ago in order to continue to live where I live. And so there's a limit at how much I will let terrorism control my life. Any road that is open in Israel and controlled by the IDF, I'm not going to go into Bethlehem or Ramallah, but any road the Jews are allowed to travel on, I will go on, even if there's no one else on that road, because my being on that road makes it safer for other people. There is a collective here. There's a collective responsibility. The soldiers that die are not, they're not dying for themselves or for their families. They're doing it for all of us. And so I'm not a soldier. I have to do whatever I can do to help this country go in the direction that now, unfortunately, a lot of people realize the wrong directions. One of the least satisfying things to do is to say, I told you so. But for the last 30 years, I fought against Oslo. I fought against the Gilad Shalit deal, letting out 1,000, including Sinwar, the guy who was running the whole thing in Hamas. How many people have died because we let him out? I moved to Gaza with my kids in the summer of 2005 to try and prevent the expulsion because it was so clear. I have a master's degree in psychology, but you don't have to be a psychologist to understand what's going to happen here. You just have to listen to the other side. Driven from the river to the sea. They have all the blurbs. They can do it in a sentence. We can't. I talked to you like for 45 minutes, just getting out there and even get started. We have a complicated narrative. But we are not only going to survive, but we're going to thrive. And when I get up in the morning and I look at my phone and I look for those 2 words in Hebrew, hutar lepirsum, like it's been allowed now to be publicized, and it's the names of the soldiers who died while I was sleeping. And I weep every single morning, even if I don't know who they are, because I know who they are. Sure. Because this is my tribe. These are my people. And everything that I'm going to do here, and everything you're doing here from where you are, don't minimize it, is for this. But we were talking about this. It's not just for us. It's for the decent people in the world. We were given this mandate a long time ago to bring the Bible to the world. And in that means decide who is decent and who isn't. The Bible's super clear on that. And that has been our mandate, and we're still doing it, and we're still going to continue to do it.
So well said. And that brings me to the point, we're going to close up this conversation, but where I get angry, which is there are so many people in the United States and around the world who don't really want to ruffle feathers. They make it clear they love the Jews, they love Israel. You go do your thing, Sid. I love you. I love the Israelis, but they don't want to ruffle feathers. They're worried about maybe the bottom line in their business. Maybe people are going to get angry. So when 5,000 pro-Palestinians who are morons, and they know nothing about the history of this country, rally in Bay Ridge, they don't want to say nothing, you know? They don't want to have people rallying in front of their businesses or their offices. And it didn't bother me as much before I left as it does now. I think people need to get angry around the world that there are people in the streets of America, of Europe, around the world advocating for people who are committing murder and making us look like we're the bad guys.
Well, it's also not just about Israel. If Israel goes down, what do you think is going to happen to the rest of the world? They'll come for the Jews first and the Christians afterwards. We are literally at the forefront of the fight for humanity in many ways. And so it is about you. If you're listening and you're sitting on the fence because, like, you know, Sid just said you don't want to ruffle feathers, you can't do that anymore. There's no gray area. There's black and there's white. And you're either fighting for the good or you're responsible for evil lifting up its head. And you all have to internalize that. There's no just thing as like reading the paper and then throwing it across the room. All right? Do something.
Right.
Get involved. If not for your own sake, then for your kids and your grandchildren.
So on the way out, if you had to, I guess, break it all down, for somebody listening in L.A. right now or Brooklyn, because I think people are a bit confused as to exactly where this country is. I guess what I'm looking for is the level of danger, how close we are here in Israel to something huge happening. Where is it right now on this?
I feel less safe in Los Angeles and in New York than I do here.
You really do. Everybody says that.
I absolutely do.
Because I don't feel unsafe here at all.
Exactly.
And I walked through the Arab quarters, those Muslim shops, twice on the way to the Western Wall, and I had some guy literally walk up to me and tell me to shut the F up, an Arab, as I came out of my cab, making my way towards the Muslim shops. Wow. I couldn't care less. I got people who eye me up and down when I walk through those quarters for an hour at a time. It didn't bother me. But yet I'm scared of the tube train every once in a while.
Look, we have to not just internalize, but make it clear to everybody else that this is our place and we are home. What we in the West consider compromise and largesse, they consider weakness. When it is clear that the Jews are home to stay and we're not going anywhere and we hold out our hand in peace to whoever you want, and 20% of Israeli citizens are Muslims and they get totally respected and educated and their mosques and whatever they need. But if you lift a finger to a Jew, you're done. There's a little thing in here. We're not going back to the Holocaust. We're not going back to the Inquisition and to everything else that's happened to us over the years. We are home. We have an army. And yes, sometimes there's an October 7th and things fail, but we are strong and we are proud and we understand what we're doing here and we're not going anywhere. So are we afraid? We're surrounded by some pretty bad guys. Yeah. Do we understand tzidkat darkenu, the righteousness of our path? Absolutely. And our kids get it. It's an unbelievable generation that's growing up here. They get it. They're willing to make the sacrifices because they understand that this is home and we are never running away again. Ever.
God bless you, man. You are terrific. Eve Harow, folks. So if you get to Israel, and the One Israel Fund, which did, by the way, fund this trip, the wonderful people, Scott, everybody, you gotta go with her because she will teach you. I'll tell you one more thing. I'm going to keep it a little longer, but my friend Dove Hyken, you know Dove Hyken, sure, and his lovely wife, Shani. So she works with a group, and they go out there, they buy land, and they take it from the Arabs, and they sell it back to the Jews. So I did a whole tour yesterday with a guy named Daniel Motidan, and I saw all those neighborhoods in and around where Arafat used to live when they offered him 93% of Israel. It wasn't enough, it wasn't 100%. And a lot of that land now is being bought from the Arabs, who, by the way, will be killed if they find out you do that.
Exactly.
Right, and give it back to the Jews. I love that, don't you?
Yeah, I wish it wasn't necessary, but there's a lot of Arabs living in homes that were once Jewish. So they cry about their refugees and everything, but, not to offend anybody, I hope it's okay. Israel's not a white country. You saw when you were here. Why is Israel not a white country? Why are the majority of our population Middle Easterners? Because the Arab and African worlds threw out the Jews in the 1950s. My son-in-law, his mother's Moroccan, his father's Tunisian. The baby's beautiful, by the way. So, but nobody knows that. And we had a refugee problem. Nobody established an UNRWA or anything for us. We had to do it ourselves. And we have done it ourselves, and we're fine with doing it ourselves. But don't mess with us ever again. It's not happening. We are not back there. We're not going to stay back there. I've got a mission coming up in a couple weeks. few spaces left for women to meet the women of Judea and Samaria, the women who are holding up the home front while their husbands are fighting and they're working and they're taking care of kids and they're taking care of their husband when he comes home a little bit traumatized from the battlefield. They are awesome. They are awesome. And I want other women to meet these women, to connect with these women, because really I think that a lot of the responsibility of raising our kids and educating them falls on the mothers and not just on the fathers. And there are women who live not far from me who raise their kids to blow other people up. All right? I don't understand it, but I have to accept it. And that's, I think, where a lot of us in the West are. Because it doesn't fit into our mindset, it can't possibly be. Knock it off, guys. Forget the patronizing attitude. There are people out there who will do things that in your wildest nightmares you can't imagine. Accept it, protect yourselves from it, cleanse the world from it if you can, and move on. That's how I see it.
Eve Harow, you're great. Thank you. We do an International Women's Day once a year at WABC. John Morgo, you need to come on.
You got it.
Because you are that voice, that collective thinking. My guy Doug back in New York loved that. That collective thinking that will help us as we move forward. Great to meet you. Thanks for coming on today. We'll talk again very soon.
You got it, so thank you.
Eve Harow right here on Sid and Friends in the Morning.